Hello, I'm Nan Simonsen. I'm the author of Aging Powerfully. It's a book about the things that we can do to age with power as we get, well, I was going to say in my case at 70 into my 80s, 90s, and hopefully beyond, but at any age, how we can take control of our own health. And one of the ways we do it is by adopting the pillars of lifestyle medicine. I've been a health coach for 3 years with Lifestyle Medical under Dr. Dysinger, who is a founding member of the College of Lifestyle Medicine. And as a health coach, I help people look at ways to adopt as close to or completely the diet that I adopted 3 years ago, which is whole food, plant-based. I eat no animal product. And I am making crab cakes. How am I doing that? Well, you're going to see. I'm going to use some very savory ingredients, and we're going to have for dinner tonight a wonderful fermented black bean, green bean and shiitake mushroom stir fry, no oil used. I stir fry, dry fry. And we're going to have these wonderful crab cakes, and then we're going to have an Asian slaw. And recipes for all of that can be found on my website, nansimonsen.com. So let's begin. Ingredient number 1, canned whole artichoke hearts. These have been drained and rinsed. I'm going to throw them in, well, pretty well rinsed. And then I'm adding, we've got a good protein source, a can of organic garbanzo beans. I use organic as often as I can because it's just too prevalent. The spraying that goes on with non-organic foods, and they spray to keep down weeds, they spray to keep down bugs, and I don't want that stuff in me, so I always go to organic. And this is Hearts of Palm. When I opened this can, there were 4 columns. This is a partial column. My hands are washed, I just washed them. It would have been about that long. Hearts of palm are literally the heart of a certain palm. And I pulled them out, I drained it, I rinsed them, I cut them into pieces, but I wanted to show you the can. And those are going in as well. So what do I have in here? I have Whole Foods, plant-based. They are hearts of palm, garbanzo beans, and artichoke hearts. Now, I'm going to add the flavor. First of all, I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. And I'm going to be tasting because I may add more. And I'm not going to give you amounts. The amounts are on the recipe because when I taste, I may do a lot of adjusting, and that will be reflected on the recipe. I'm using an old-fashioned seasoning for seafood, and that is Old Bay seasoning, which is primarily celery salt. It's celery salt and some other spices, red pepper, black pepper, and paprika. And I'm also putting in a little bit of extra paprika. I'm putting in some dill weed, and I'm putting in something to add sort of a fishiness, a sea vegetable, and it could have been seaweed, a few sheets of, in this case I could have used maybe 3 or 4 sheets of seaweed, and you can find this at just about any store, roasted seaweed snack, and in this case, again, organic. Or I could use dulse granules, organic dulse granules. I could have used kombu, which is also seaweed, and I used the dulse. So I put in, what did I put? Well, I believe it was 1 or 2, and I'll let you know. And this is going to give it that bit of kind of, I want to say, well, that sea aroma. I'm putting in chopped garlic. I'm adding chopped cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, you can use a bit of parsley. If you don't have fresh parsley, you can use dry parsley. I have a half of a chopped red onion, and I saved some of the aquafaba. That's what it's called, that fluid, the juice, the broth that you get from the can of garbanzo beans when you open it, because if this is a little dry, I'll add that to add a little moisture. I'm also going to put in, I'm going to begin by putting in a half a cup. This is a whole cup, but I'm going to put in a half a cup of original real panko. And, ooh, I didn't get organic. I got gluten-free, non-GMO, that's helpful, but not organic. Well, what I really needed was gluten-free in my case, and that's hard to find, and dairy-free, so it's vegan. And let's see, I'm gonna add a little bit, because I like spice, just a little bit of red chili flakes. Okay, and I don't want this to be mashed to a paste. Now, I don't know if you can tell what I'm using here. I'm so excited about this. Before I put this on, what you are looking at was my Vitamix. I got a new Vitamix that would accommodate a new offering of the Vitamix company, and that is a food processor that will fit on the base of a Vitamix. So in my case, I had to get the one that that would adapt, that was adaptable for the food processor, but I did it, and I just love this. And you could go to Vitamix.com and see what I'm talking about. I think it was a bit of an investment, maybe $500-600, but Christmas is coming up, and boy, is it nice not to have to pull out anything else. And this just goes up in a high cupboard. Okay, so I want to break it up, but I don't want to open this. Sorry about that. All right, I'm gonna turn it and just, oops, a little bit of parsley there, and mix it just a bit. Oh my gosh, does this smell good. Oddly enough, it actually smells a bit crabby. Crabby as in crab. I loved crab cakes. Actually, I loved seafood, but the oceans are becoming depleted, I think. And they're so polluted with plastics and mercury and garbage. And the fish have been way overfished, that I am very comfortable bypassing that. All right, that may be it. I don't want it to be too chunky or it won't hold together, but I also don't want it to be too finely mixed. How are we doing? I'll show it to you when I'm convinced that this is what I want, and I think I am. I'm afraid if I do it too much, see, I see bits of garbanzo bean and bits of the artichoke that are not, okay, I'm gonna do it one more time, and that's it. And if you have, for sure, that's it. Put this aside. I'm going to taste. Oh, this is nice. Okay. You know what? It's a little more pasty than it should have been. I could have stopped earlier, but let me show you. Look. See? But do you see there's still chunks? See that? And yes, there's still plenty of texture here. Let me taste and see what I think. Oh my gosh. That's actually perfect. Yum, yum, yum. Okay. Move this out of the way. Ready to make the crab cakes. Actually, I don't need any of this anymore. Although, I'm going to allow for some panko crumbs to be on the outside of the crab cakes. I need this lemon again. And so I'll keep this and this. I'm going to empty the food processor bowl. All right. And this makes a lot. Is this expensive? I don't think so. I'm trying to think of the price of everything. The garbanzo beans were 99 cents, even organic. I got them from Trader Joe's. Actually I got it all from Trader Joe's. Every one of those cans were right there on the shelf next to each other, actually pretty close to each other. I'll take this out of the sink. These are the green beans that I've washed. That will go, I'm gonna put this right here. That will be cooked with fermented black beans. I'm experimenting with something. The recipe calls for using about 1/3 of a cup of the mixture to make a crab cake. I want a nice big crab cake. I don't want a little teeny one. And I like the size of this. This is a funnel. A lot of us have funnels. I'm gonna try and see what I can do to make a crab cake using the little slice of parchment paper that I cut off when I put the parchment paper on this tray. And I'm gonna see what about 1/3 of a cup, this is not a full 1/2 of a cup, will look like in here. The reason I'm using the parchment paper also, I think I'm gonna go for 1/2 a cup. I'm experimenting as I'm talking to you. All right. See, I can pull this out if it doesn't come out, and then I can flatten it, but I have, oh, I like this. All right, now, this is all experiment while I'm talking to you. I do this a lot. And, excuse me a minute. I'm going to put this on some crumbs. All right. All right. So I'm using, forget 1/3 of a cup. I'm using 1/2 a cup. I'm using a silly little tool to allow me to get a rounded shape that I can then just flatten out. These are going to be nice sized crab cakes. One per person will be just fine. All right. And another, and then we'll see how many we get. The recipe called for 1/3 of a cup per, and well, one of the recipes. I did what I do a lot. Looked at 3 vegan crab cake recipes and then came up based on things that I like and flavors that I like to marry with my own version. And one of the recipes that called for 1/3 of a cup, one of them just said make, oh, I don't know what it said, make 6 or 8, and didn't talk about the amount you used. That would have been a kind of a hunt and peck kind of a thing. All right. Sorry. Okay, so this is going pretty fast. Let me slide this over in case I need more room. Now what's going to happen here, I'm going to let them rest just a bit because I'm going to make a tartar sauce, and I don't want to cook this until my husband and I are just about to eat because they're cooked about well, I want to say 3 to 6 minutes per side. Depends on how thin it is, how dense, of course. And 3 to 6 minutes per side is not a lot. I'm using a stand pan. I'll mention that later. If I'm cooking, I may or may not cook them in front of you. I may simply show you what they look like, but the stand pan is a non-stick surface. And here we go. What these additional crumbs are going to do is that they're going to give me, I think, a crunchier crab cake. No oil being used. All right. I'm actually quite surprised at how moist these are. Okay. And let's do 2 more. But I'm going to sprinkle a little on the tops of all of them. Okay. There. And that'll help dry out the surfaces. So with a 1/2 cup in each, it looks like we're getting 8 crab cakes. That's pretty good. In other words, I could feed, unless somebody had a really big appetite, I could feed 8 people a crab cake, top it with a tartar sauce that I'm going to show you in just a minute, serve it with a salad of some kind. Tonight will be the Asian slaw, but it could have been a big, beautiful green salad. And the green beans. And what a nice meal. All vegan, as delicious as can be. Nothing had to die for it. Sorry, but that's what happens with animals. And yeah, okay. One of the recipes said put it in the freezer for 20 minutes to let it set and chill and marry. I might do that if I'm not going to cook them right away. There, let me show you. All right, take a look. Doesn't that look nice? I think it's going to look terrific when they're nice and brown. So I'm putting these in the freezer. And I'm not saying you need to, but in the recipe, I'll let you know how that went and recommend it if I think it really did need it. All right. Another handy tool that I love, a mini Cuisinart. I bought this for a song somewhere and don't even remember where. And I love it because it uses so little space when I want to do something like this. I'm making a tartar sauce, and there are a number of ways I could have made tartar sauce, with mayonnaise, with vegan mayonnaise, which is called vegan. Well, one of them is Veganaise. Problem is that's loaded with oil. And I avoid using extra oil. I eat foods with oil, for example, nuts and seeds and olives and avocado, but I don't add oil to my foods. I don't see any reason to, calorie-wise. I don't see any reason to add additional omega-3 6 fatty acids, so I just don't. And a large group of whole food plant-based advocates feel the same way. So what am I going to add? Okay, I'm going to add some dill, some ground pepper, and you'll get your amounts on this, and a little bit of sea salt. That's all been mixed in. Now I'm throwing this in because I love it, and I'll let you know what I think of the flavor. Well, you'll probably see because I'm going to taste it. And that is rinsed, and they'll be chopped in here, capers. Capers have a, not kind of fishy, but there's something special about their flavor. I'm going to add some mustard, Dijon mustard, and a couple of tablespoons. Should I add 1 or 2 to start with? I'm going to do 2 of lemon juice, and then I'll see if I want to add more. This is fresh squeezed. I always have it on hand. I actually buy a massive amount of lemons and I squeeze them with my electric juicer and freeze 2 cups at a time. So when I say freshly squeezed, that's as freshly squeezed as they get, except the day I do it. Then I'm going to add, I love slightly sweetened tartar sauce. And so I'm going to start by adding a teaspoon of, this is organic pickle relish, sweet pickle relish. Now some of you won't want this because there's no way to get around the fact that there's sugar in here. Okay, sorry. So what's going to, oh my gosh, I love the look of this. What's going to happen is we're going to have this toasted, crunchy top, even though I'm not using oil, I'm using a non-stick skillet, and the crab cake, and then we'll put on top of it a nice serving of the tartar sauce. Let's see what I think. Oh, I can taste the capers. No more than a teaspoon. That would be too much. But that's really, really good. Do I want a little more mustard? I'm going to put a touch more mustard. And that's it. And I don't want it any sweeter. That tastes perfect. Otherwise, it would be sweet and odd for this. And, oh, and I also added a half a teaspoon of onion powder and a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. All right. Now, when this, I'm going to be right back. What I had used, and I don't know if I showed you, was silken tofu. Rather than using mayonnaise, I used a bean. This is fermented tofu, and silken tofu is a little different than, even though it's still firm, is a little different than the conventional tofu. It's not in the refrigerator section, it's where the Asian foods are, but on a shelf, and it has more water than conventional tofu. But I always get the organic, and it is, it has protein. It has protein, it has calcium, it has fiber, not a lot, but some, and it's a whole food. Well, slightly processed, not completely whole food, but a very good source of a creaminess. I use it for tofu mayonnaise. Now I'm using it for tofu tartar sauce, and it will in the refrigerator thicken up a little bit. And what you're going to find if you transition to whole food plant-based, you're going to have sauces. You're going to have sauces that you're going to fall in love with, and it makes everything taste better. The tofu sour cream, I call it that, actually adds protein to a dish. It adds a cool, kind of a slightly lemony, well, what sour cream does, but without any animal product and without the additional fat. Tofu is a legume that has a decent amount of fat. It's probably about 30% fat, but it's encased in its whole food body. The beans, whether it's beans or tofu, you're still getting the same amount of fat in it, but it's a whole food fat, and that doesn't bother me at all. Okay. This will go in my refrigerator, and that is my tartar sauce. I'll be back to you in just a few minutes when I'm cooking. I will cook it for you when I'm cooking the crab cakes, and you can see what you think. I'll be back. Hello. All right, I'm back, apron and all, ready to cook. I heated my Scan pan. I like this non-stick pan. I think it's one of the best on the market. It's one of the safest. It has a titanium ceramic coating, not a Teflon coating, and it doesn't chip away. I put them in the freezer. You saw that they're looking beautiful, and I think they needed the rest. They absorbed some additional moisture into those panko crumbs, and that's why it was so soft before. I have a spray bottle. After that whole thing about oil that I said, I have a spray bottle. I sprayed and then I wiped it out, and you can see that there's nothing but a film in here. Why did I do that? Because I was worried that the crumbs might still stick. Maybe that wasn't the case. So I have it nice and hot. I put a sprinkle of water and it sizzled, and I'm going to put as many as I can get on here to cook. It'll probably be 4. And we're going to give them, we'll see. I'm saying 3 to 6 minutes per side, and we'll see what we think. In the meantime, while these are cooking, I'm going to grab what I've just made as our side dish, and that is my fermented black bean shiitake mushroom green beans. Now, the problem is I don't remember what I am calling it on my website. It's either green beans with fermented black beans and shiitake mushrooms, but I'm pretty sure it's fermented black beans, shiitake mushrooms, and green beans. Anyway, let me show you. I think it's a fabulous dish. It's what I call a stir fry, and yet there's no oil. I put hot green beans into my wok. Actually, take that back. I heat my wok quite high, put the green beans that have been washed so they have a little bit of moisture in them in there, and then I'm going to say blacken them, but not really. I let them get a little bit charred in the pan. At one point, when I've charred them well enough, and again, they're not really black, they're more like that. It's almost like when you get roasted corn, frozen roasted corn to put in a dish where you want a smokier flavor, that kind of a thing. Then I added reconstituted sliced shiitake mushrooms and garlic and rinsed, let me put this a little higher, and rinsed black beans, fermented black beans. I got them on Amazon, and kept stirring it. I used some of the broth from the, and it's all on the menu, on the recipe, some of the broth that I got from soaking the dried shiitake mushrooms, which I get on Amazon, organic. I buy a pound of them at a time, and I think it's about $25 a pound, but it goes forever. You use only a few ounces, reconstituted, and this is probably no more than 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces reconstituted. So it's peanuts, garlic, fermented black beans, shiitake mushrooms, and tamari. The tamari is added at the last minute. It kind of caramelizes in the pan, flavors all of this. The green beans are crunchy and really well flavored. So that will go along. With our crab cakes. And let's flip this over and see what it's looking like. Nope, not ready. I flipped that, so I'll flip these. That one's a little more brown. Nope, not ready. I'm gonna cheat and take a little piece. See what I think. Oh, that's nice. That's going to be lovely with the tartar sauce. I'm going to let this sit a little bit longer, get them toasted well on both sides, and I'll show you one plated. All right, be back.